if you're small, like we kind of talked about, and you're doing all the daily tech work, sales work, whatever, and you're not scaling enough, well, if someone was going to try to buy that, Rob, I have to be able to do all those roles to take that stuff over from you. But if I have a company that the technician portion is taken care of, the sales portion is taken care of, and I'm just guiding and coaching all these different people in my company, well, then I can hand that over to somebody and the machine just continues to work. If I'm not here for a couple of weeks or a month, will the business fall apart, or is the business going to keep going? And making sure that the business keeps going without me will really make it easier to sell in the long term.
You're listening to the MSP Success My First Million podcast. I'm your host, Rob Patterson. Today, I'm talking with Greg Brainerd, owner of Braintek, a Houston-based managed services provider specializing in the needs of small to medium-sized businesses. It's great to have you on the show, Greg.
Thanks, Rob. I'm great to be here.
Excellent. Let's start off with how you started off. What got you into this whole technology space, MSP business?
Well, long time ago, I worked for a computer support company in Tucson, Arizona. They were called Sacidex. And I was just doing computer repair work for them. So I was one of their field guys and go out and, just work on computers, whatever they told me to do. So that's kind of how I got started in this specific space. A few years later, I got laid off. It was in 2000s. I ended up moving out to the Houston metro area. I had a friend out here who said, "Hey, man, there's lots of jobs out here. You should come out here." So I said, okay. So I got out here and I found a job working with KPMG, which was okay. But so then shortly thereafter, I got a job working with Pennzoil, and it was at a data center. Really cool, but it was at night, graveyard shift, so that wasn't so great. But anyway, so I worked there for several years. Shell bought Pennzoil. And when that happened, everybody there started freaking out that they were going to have layoffs and whatnot. So I went home, talked to my wife, and I was like, "Hey, Tracy, what should I do about this?" And so then we started to, Braintek up in my spare time. So I was working graveyard, and then I was getting some sleep and then doing a little bit of work. She was going out to networking events, trying to drum up business, going to the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. We started doing some direct mail out to people. After about a year, the leaders at Shell came to me and they're like, "Hey, Greg, we're going to have to let you go." And I was like, "Yeah, thank you." And I didn't have to do this anymore. Tracy was just like, "What happens if this doesn't work?" I said, "I don't know. I guess we'll just move in with your parents." And she didn't like that idea. And, but we've been going ever since. So it's been wonderful.
Was that your motivator for her?
Not moving in with her parents.
Gives you two choices.
Well, you make this work or yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, you've been successful so far. What would you say your biggest success has been so far?
There's been a lot, but like staying in business is one, being able to grow is another, joining, organizations like Technology Marketing Toolkit has been humongous for our business, learning other things that I just didn't know. I went to this event that they held called Rapid. I think this was in 2018, 2019 time period. And there, I met Robin for the first time, and her and the business just kind of really gave me a lot of different information to learn and pay attention to. Well, while I was at that event, I was talking to one of the guys that was attending the event with me. We were just at dinner. We were kind of shooting the shit. And what he did is he mentioned to me that their contracts adjust with when their user quantities go up or down. And I was like, "What? You guys do that?" I was like, "Well, I sell contracts, but once I sell it, I never make any changes to it." And so he was like, "Well, you should do that." So I was like, "Well, okay." So I go back and I take a look at it, and sure enough, I don't know, a good portion of our clients had grown quite a bit. And I even had the language written into the contract that it would change. And I just never bothered. I was just too lazy about it. Anyways, that one change was pivotal. Being at that event, learning all those things, talking to this guy, it wouldn't have happened without Technology Marketing Toolkit. So I'm very grateful. I mean, we probably doubled our business just from that one thing.
Wow. That's great. I mean, I talk, obviously, I'm very involved in the community, always have been. What do you think overall? what do you think the value of being in a peer group or being immersed in that community, even independent of, say, specific trainings and all, just the sort of peer multiplier effect?
Well, Rob, there's this thing, right, where you feel the competition is my competition and I don't want to share anything, right? But being in a peer group, especially the ones that I'm in with Robin's group, is that these are my competition, but they're in other parts of the country. And so I don't really feel that when I'm sharing information about our business that it's really going to be detrimental. In fact, it's incredibly helpful. So they'll share things with me that's working for them. I'll ask questions. I'll be able to probe them, maybe hold them accountable for some things. They do the same thing back to me as we just kind of share, both things that are going wonderful in our business and then things that are just not doing very well at all. Things that I'm thinking about doing or going to try. And they go, have you thought about this, Greg? Or what about that? And then, it really helps me think about that. My friends and peers that are here, in the business, they don't always have the same concerns and thoughts like the leaders that I'm hanging out with in these peer groups are. So I think that's just tremendous. I highly recommend it to whomever that has a business.
Yeah, I think, being involved in community over the years, I stumbled into it because I started a group in New York for Microsoft partners back then. And I found one of the first benefits was, as much as I might want to talk to my friends or whomever about the things that were on my mind, they didn't resonate the same way as being with other IT people, right? Like even the geeks speak all of it. It's like you're in this other, kind of culture.
Absolutely. I mean, they'll come back and they'll say, Rob, you can't do that. And you're like, why? You're like, I don't know. It just sounds like a bad idea. But then when you talk to me, it's like, well, I tried doing that. I did do that, whatever that is, and it just didn't work out. I think that the level of competency, the ideas that are coming out of it are just totally different when you're talking to business owners versus people that just aren't in business and they're doing this kind of things. The opinions are just much greater. They say hang around with people that are been there where you want to go to, and so that's what these kind of peer groups are like. They're people that are like-minded. They're doing what I'm doing. They're trying to get to the same places I'm trying to get to. So it's very nice to have those kind of people to sound off with.
Yeah, and I know your group actually. I think the other aspect is I'd say that over time these people actually are, they're your colleagues, but they're your friends over time too. I think a couple guys there, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Love those guys.
You want to share a defining moment or turning point that you feel like set you on the path to success?
I for a long time, I had really wanted to start a business. I think getting fired really was probably that turning point that really kind of got me, into that mode and really wanting to do it. It's really hard to say, but it was probably at that point. I was really thinking about it for a long time. Then that fear of not having an income and having to go find another job again was just something I didn't want to do. And I kind of had this experience. So, I think that fear just really made me want to go off and pursue this. And having the support of my wife was incredible. And then finding other people in the community like, Robin and Technology Marketing Toolkit really helps continue that, and help me grow.
Yeah, that's excellent. So this podcast is designed, the audience should be split in two. It's either people who are starting out, probably the bulk of the audience, people starting out trying to get to that first $1 million in top line revenue. We also have, the parallel track, trying to get to your first $1 million in profit. You're probably somewhere in between those two poles in your journey right now. But if you're thinking back to when you were trying to get to that first $1 million in top line revenue, how did you manage cash flow or financial planning, or what advice might you give on that for the guys who are starting out are like, okay, if I've got anything in my account, that means good and nothing means bad. What advice would you give there?
The first thing is when I'm I focused heavily on selling contracts that were very predictable in nature. So, you sell $1,000 a month, and I know that's coming in all the time. And of course, you have to minus off wherever the tools are, of course, some labor that you're going to use if you're hiring people. But really, you're going to have to look at that and say, okay, well, that $1,000 a month has got to cover all my base expenses. So you get 5 of those, now you get $5,000 a month. So that'll cover maybe my salary and maybe a little bit of rent. Maybe when I get to 10,000, I can hire somebody to help me out. So as you're kind of going through this process, really making sure that monthly amount that you're guaranteed every month from those contracts cover your base expenses and projects, selling other hardware, all of that's just going to be on top of that. So all that's kind of gravy. But I would definitely stress making sure that you have that monthly recurring revenue is just key.
Hey, you got in the middle of a kind of a little bit of a debate yesterday about people, which I thought the industry had moved to a certain point, but the debate was about whether you put people in agreements 12-month, 24, 36, or you let them go month to month. And the debate was around, the person who doesn't put people in agreements was around the, I earn my keep every day. And I tell people, right. And the other side of the story was, hey, predictable revenue, better valuation, you really need to have people in agreements. What's your take on that?
I've tried both, Rob. I still have clients that are on month-to-month agreements, and then I have the majority of them in the 3-year. I think part of it is the guarantee. So I know that if they're in some kind of an agreement with me a year or 3 years, that at least I can count on that, especially if you have to hire or bring in resources to support that. I mean, if you get a $10,000 contract and you don't have the manpower, I've got to go hire somebody to handle that. So, but if it's on a month to month, or let's say 2 months in, they're like, you know what, I don't like you guys. Well, then I got to let that person go most likely, unless I've got something else for them to do. So there's that. Of course, the valuation from a business point of view is very helpful. I think a lot of it's just the certainty of having them around. The month to month's great. I mean, if you want to continuously prove yourself, but I want to prove myself and then kind of move beyond that. I mean, if people are in a contract and they're unhappy with me, I'm not going to hold them to it. I'm going to go, hey, look, we're doing a crappy job, or we just don't get along, or whatever, we're not always a fit for everybody. I'm just going to let them go out of the contract anyways.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of some performance clause sort of either in there or assumed in there, I guess, right? If you really can't make them happy.
Well, it's not just that. I want to have a good relationship with that company. And if they're constantly complaining, they're bitching, and I can't solve those problems, or maybe they don't like us, or whatever it is, I'm just like, it is just easier for me to just walk away.
Yeah. But I do like the point about planning and staffing, because I don't think everybody thinks about that. They just think about it almost like the contract or the idea of it is almost removed from the logic of it. Oh yeah, we do it because it's better, or we don't do it. But really, I think strategically, there's a lot of value to it. So as you ventured into this and you started to build, you got past that million and beyond. How did you go about scaling your team? Because at some point you couldn't just do this all yourself. What did you have to look for there? And, of course, always thinking that somebody's in that position right now and they're like, how do I get to this next point or have some help?
Yeah. So scaling in the beginning was very hard. It was hard to let go. It was just hard for me to have that kind of trust with somebody else. But that's exactly what you have to do. So, my job then becomes the coach and mentor to help this, other technician that I have grow. And I would get complaints from clients early in the day that would say, hey, look, this person that you're sending out here, they're not as fast as you. They're not as smart as you. They're not as whatever. And I get it, but I want this person to succeed as well. Because if I'm always doing it, or like you said, I can't scale. I can't, again, get to that next level. So it was just being persistent in that, training them, coaching them through those kind of things, showing them everything that I'm trying to do, documentation, making sure that they have access to all the, required elements that they need, passwords, the documentation, whatever. And it's just being there for them to answer those kind of questions so that they can succeed, because as they succeed, then I can succeed. And that freed me up to do other things like selling. And so if I'm going out there and selling business, then obviously I can't work the business at the same time. So and then I'm growing and getting more, then we can get another person. But it's really tough. I mean, that whole mindset, but it was very rewarding as we kind of go through that process. And I was able to finally have technicians that were underneath me that I could, didn't have to be babysat, and that I could rely on them and they could go off and do it.
So what created the mindset shift? Was it just need because of capacity or planning, or like, because this comes up a lot of, there's a control issue. Some people definitely have more of a control issue than others. Some of it's around just wanting good quality services, and sometimes it's more around, no, this is just part of my personality. But what was it for you that made you go to that side and say, well, I have to figure this out and become the mentor?
Well, I mean, I want to grow. So there's the growth of the business itself, right? So how much capacity do I have in my 8-hour or 10-hour day? I can only do so much. And so I just can't do everything by myself. I mean, it's even like running my house. I can't run my house all by myself. I've got, my house has all these things. I've got the lawn, the dishes, the cleaning of the house, repairing the house. So, I mean, I've got to farm all that out to other people, whether that's my wife, the lawn guy. So it's the same thing in the business. I just can't do everything myself. I don't know how to do accounting. I don't know how to do this or that. So I've got to go find experts that can help me do those things. And it's the same thing as I'm kind of growing technician-wise and I bring on more clients. I just don't have the time and energy to do all the help desk work, do all the server work, then go sell the business, then manage the relationship. So I've got to really find good people, trust them, coach them, teach them, and then that helps me scale to the next level.
And how have you built out, also, so that we're talking technical, have you along the way built out any sales and marketing people or resources in there as well?
We are absolutely working on that. And this is probably one of the hardest things for us. I mean, the technician role, scaling that out was hard enough for me to let go and to trust and to train them. The sales and marketing is a totally different animal, very similar though, that I've got to, again, take that information that I know and kind of pass it along. But there's, one of the reasons why I'm in the technology marketing toolkit is because I just didn't have that sales and marketing expertise. So I had to go learn it, to get better at it myself. And as I've gotten better at it, I have learned, hey, you should have this SDR in place, a sales development rep. I should have an account manager. All those things that I was doing on my own before, and in addition to, trying to do the sales and then do the tech work. So absolutely, it's been critical. And I'm still, I feel, in the infancy and trying to build out the department. I have one salesperson that's dedicated outside. I have one account manager, and then I have one SDR. And so trying to make sure that they're successful and then trying to scale that to the next level and having another, outside salesperson and another SDR, another account manager. So I'd love to get to that point. And then just manage that team, as opposed to, me going out there with them and doing those things too.
How's the account management role been working out? Have you found that to be good for the bottom line, getting more retention with your customers, traction, and upsell opportunities? Is that, that's what the idea, the concept is. Do you find that to be true and working out for you?
I do, for the most part, yes. My account manager takes on a lot of the customer issues, whether they're complaints. He gets a lot of positive feedback. He's able to talk to him about, other technology paths that we need to do to say, hey, look, you're missing this security tool or that one, or renewing contracts. All those things are just taken off my plate because he handles all that stuff. He manages a lot of those relationships. And if he needs me, I'll jump in and I'll help out with him. But for the most part, he handles that pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. You were talking about, juggling things at work, juggling things at home, working whatever number of hours. And I'm sure that when you were just starting this all off and you had your day job at night and then this job and trying to get through to that, I don't know, say first few $100,000, how did you maintain any kind of work-life balance?
Well, in the beginning, when I was working a full-time night job and then trying to do this during the day, I had no life. It was work, sleep, work. And there was some commuting in there. So there was nothing. But as soon as I was able to be free of that, my full-time job, and really focus on this, I was able to have somewhat more of a life. But of course, in the very beginning, and it's just or mostly me, I'm working a lot of hours where I'm working at nights, on the weekends, obviously during the day. So there was a lot of that. So I really had to make sure that I took time out to spend with the kids, spend time with my wife, going on dates, go to school functions. I mean, those are all just as important because if you don't pay attention to those things, they'll be gone in the blink of an eye. And then they're, adults, and then you're scrambling to try to get their time. So I really try to prioritize going to those events. While I'm at those events, sometimes I had to take work calls or answer emails. But that was really where scaling the staff helps out. So then they can help take some of those responsibilities off me. So I'm not having to be at every single client doing every single thing myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten asked that question pretty often, and the answers are all over the map, from just like, yeah, there was none, period, to, work kind of is my family, to more what you're saying. You have to be intentional in carving out that time, or you're not just going to end up with that time in your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I use Outlook for, right? So, I mean, if there was a school function that I needed to go to, I just put it on the calendar. And then all of a sudden, when someone calls me up and says, hey, can we do this? I'll go, no, I have a meeting. And, that's how it goes. Unless it was an emergency, like some kind of a, server emergency that I had to go take care of, then, I'll do it.
If you could go back in time now with what you know at this point in your business, what would you tell yourself, or what would you tell our audience that would be things that either a lesson you learned or something that would help you kind of accelerate your path? I think a lot of people want to know that.
You're good at, most likely, I mean, like I am, I was very good at doing tech. And so I didn't have any problem with that. My problems were learning the types of roles that fall outside of that. So sales, marketing, accounting, which I'm still not very great at, management of people, being able to talk in front of groups of people, like at networking events, really taking the time to focus on learning, getting outside my comfort zone to do those various things. One of the things that I did real early on is I would go to those networking events where you stand up in front of 100 people and you give your 1-minute commercial. That was really a struggle. So trying to find out the right messaging to talk about, I would tell people that we just fixed computers. And so then I started getting residential computers to repair. And that gave me the wrong thing to focus on. So I had to change the messaging. So really making sure you have that messaging correct, overcoming those fears. I went and I volunteered to be the MC at the chamber breakfast, so that I was the one talking to everybody. I took Toastmasters so I could get out of my shell or learn that. So really finding those areas of weakness for myself or for you would really be crucial. And then, of course, constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to, listen to audiobooks, read books, go to seminars to learn things that I don't know. And then, of course, trying things. Is this going to work, Rob? I don't know, but we're going to give it a shot. And then, if it doesn't work, that's okay. Then we pivot and do something else. Be willing to spend the money on things. All those different things, I think, are just great things. I would just emphasize doing more of that if I was talking to my younger self.
Yeah. What do you do now for the marketing side of things? Do you have any things in particular that you focus on, or things that you would tell people to try earlier, or
campaigns you're talking about?
Campaign strategies. I mean, what do you do now? Do you get out there and network a lot, or do you do a lot of JV partnerships? Like, kind of what's your mix? And what do you think are things that, if you're in that really early stage, you could do?
So the first thing I did early on, and I should send you pictures of this, Rob, because it's really funny. I had a green Dodge Caravan that we bought used just because we had kids, right? And I logoed it up. and I put the biggest, now people start off with like these little magnets, they're like 12 by 12 or something. They stick on the door that you can take off. I didn't do that. I like decaled the whole windows. Oh, not quite a wrap, but I did that. It wasn't terribly expensive, but at least when I'm driving around, I had this billboard going on. And still, every one of my cars that we have for our service personnel and some of our sales personnel are logoed up. So I would highly recommend getting, I don't know, $400 or $500, getting a mobile billboard and then driving around the city. Early on, I did what a realtor does, and I put my face on my business card. And so when I'm handing out business cards, I became recognizable at that point. Sabrina, she's now currently doing that as well. We advertise as much as possible. So, we're doing direct mail campaigns. Right now, we're doing the Band-Aid campaign through Technology Marketing Toolkit. But just trying different campaigns. So we're, finding out, we're just mailing those off. We do some print advertising in our local Woodlands Chamber of Commerce, their monthly publication. We go to different networking events like the Woodlands Chamber, BNI's, trying to find all those. We have PPC ads with Google. We worked for many years on our SEO work. Wearing logoed shirts, for all the technicians as they're out there talking with people, making sure they all have business cards as well. And I don't know, we just trying different things. Like right now I'm trying, and I know that everybody's going to laugh, but I'm trying next door ads. So we're going to see if that'll actually do anything. I know that everybody tells me it's going to be residential, but I'm focused on the small business owner, right? They all still live in homes. So we'll see if that turns into anything. Or we're giving that a shot. Maybe the mom that's watching the group will tell the business owner. Or maybe she's the business owner. I don't know. We're trying all kinds of things, Rob.
That's interesting. So you don't see a silver bullet. It's like it's a mixture. Maybe you're getting some calls from the wraps on the cars or from the networking events. And you mentioned Sabrina. Is she heading up biz dev, or what role does she play in the company?
Yeah, so she's doing our outside sales, but she gets out there and networks a lot. She's doing that, I don't know, 3 or 4 days a week, plus doing her regular, meetings with clients or prospects rather. And then of course she tries to get me to do, seminars, from time to time. So, I'll go out and do that and talk to people, and then she'll jump in and help out with that. And so, yeah, so she's doing well.
Yeah. So that's a good mix. Would you say that over time you get to look at marketing more like what do they say? It's a marathon, not a sprint. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, of course, when you look at your own buying habits, you see an advertisement for one thing, and unless you're like in the market for that one thing at that moment in time, you kind of just probably ignore it and glaze over it. But over time, if you see the same thing over and over and over again, and it keeps coming up at different places, you see it online, you see it driving down the road, you see it on a billboard, you see it in a magazine, you do a Google search or whatever, and you see it, and then I'm like, oh, I do have a need for that. Well, then I'm going to go, okay, and it's been, I trusted that company's been around for a long time. Maybe I know someone there. Maybe I've talked to them. Maybe they're in my networking groups that I attend. So it just kind of depends. But yes, it's definitely a long-term game for sure.
Hey, so you're talking about logoed cars and logoed equipment and, apparel and all. It just made me think, I didn't ask you about company culture. I mean, as you scale this business, have you instilled a company culture there? Do you feel that's an important aspect to being successful in a business, or is it, just the byproduct, or how do you look at company culture?
Well, so a lot of times IT can be very stressful. We get a lot of people that are upset with their computer not working. They can't do whatever they're trying to do. They're locked out of whatever they're trying to do. Someone does. Anyways, there's all kinds of stress that's involved from the client point of view, right? And then they project that oftentimes on the going, hey, I need this fixed now. I need to, they're breathing down your neck trying to get this, whatever they're trying to get done. And I mean, it's understandable. If your car breaks, I can't get around, I need my car fixed. And so you feel very similar. So we want to try to have as much fun as possible. We're inherently nerds. So I like comic book stuff like you see behind me. We've got all kinds of Star Wars gear here in the office. I go down and I try to take the guys to movies every quarter. to do, fun things. The guys, we have multiple women here as well. So the staff. So we're trying to do things with everybody involved. We're, trying to help them learn and coach them. And I mean, if something goes wrong, I don't want to have to go, oh, you're fired. So I want to, really dive into that and see what's kind of happened, what's wrong. So we help them out. And really try to take a lot of that stress as much as possible out, because there's a lot of it in this business.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Greg, what do you see as your long-term goals for the company? What do you think you're going to do to try to achieve them?
Well, trying to grow it. I want to get it bigger, and then at some point I'm going to exit. I can't do this forever. So either I didn't sell it to someone that wants to take it on to the next level, or maybe sell it to or give it to my daughters, and they can take it to the next level. One of the two, but I know that I'm not going to be doing this forever. So, but in the meantime, I definitely want to grow it.
Yeah, that makes me actually think. I mean, I do know, a little about some of the community you're involved in, but when you're thinking about that statement, you want to grow it and probably sell it. Are you doing specific things to enable that? Meaning, there's ways you can grow intentionally and put certain systems and structure in place so that when you want to sell it, you get the maximum value for it, as opposed to kind of going along and it strikes you that one day, like, I think I should get out of this business. Are you intentionally working towards that? And if so, what are some things people can think about, say in an earlier stage, to be building their business in the proper way?
So there's a lot of other things. The first thing, I joined a group that focuses on mergers and acquisitions with Paul Sissel. That's through the Technology Marketing Toolkit, and he is really kind of coaching and guiding us through different things that we need to think about in our business. So one of them is, trying to get out of debt, right? Not having any debt is going to be very helpful. Two, making sure that you have good profit numbers, no matter how big or small you are. So, paying attention to that. And depending on where you're at in your journey, you may be maybe nothing in profit, maybe you've got tons of profit, but making sure that that's kind of moving up the ladder as you're kind of growing through this process. And of course, you take some of those profits and you reinvest them into the company, in some next door ads or something. So you want to invest that so that hopefully you're growing the business as we're kind of going through this process. One thing they talk about in these groups is that not to forget that you're running a business. So as you're talking to someone about mergers and acquisitions, what typically can happen is you get distracted with that, and then the business itself just starts falling apart because you're not watching and being involved and making sure that it's still growing. So you have to do both. Making sure that you're learning about all these different terminologies. What does best in class look like? Best in class does these things. Are you doing those things? And I'm like, no. Well, why not? And so then I got to, learn about how to do those things, take risks and try to do those activities. And really grow in all those different areas that, again, I don't know. When I first started, I just wanted to be the best computer technician. And then now I'm like, and I'm trying to get the business to a point where it's a good business and that someone else wants it. Another thing that's been on my mind about that is, if you're small, like we kind of talked about, and you're doing all the daily tech work, sales work, whatever, and you're not scaling enough. Well, if someone was going to try to buy that, Rob, I have to be able to do all those roles to take that stuff over from you. Well, but if I have a company that the technician portion is taken care of, the sales portion is taken care of, and I'm just guiding and coaching all these different people in my company, well, then I can hand that over to somebody and the machine just continues to work. Where it's getting, if I'm not here for a couple of weeks or a month, will the business fall apart, or is the business going to keep going? And making sure that the business keeps going without me will really make it easier to sell in the long term.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. You mentioned a number of times in this conversation about always striving to learn. You were talking about, different teachers, audiobooks, trainings. I mean, what would you say to people about that? I mean, where does that rank on the, you got all this stuff to do in a day. You got to, handle the company and family stuff and all, like what priority would you put towards that kind of, say, continuing education or coaching?
You want to learn more, you're going to earn more, Rob. Period. Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's critical. I mean, school doesn't stop at high school or college. I mean, it's a continuing endeavor that you should pursue constantly to improve yourself, your business, the people that work underneath you. Like one of the things we're doing currently is I'm putting all the guys, if they haven't already, through CompTIA trainings. So Network Plus, A+. I want them Microsoft certified. Our clients don't really care about it, but at the end of the day, I think that helps them become better technicians, better well-rounded in those particular things. For myself, it's constant learning as well. So I'm, you're driving around, to client sites or to prospect sites or back and forth to home, put an audiobook on instead of listening to the music. So that way you're ingesting more things about things that you don't know about, so that I can learn whatever that is, how to sell better, how to do accounting better, how to whatever better. And I think that it's important to look at different things in the business, focus on different things, like I said, going from sales, marketing, accounting, things that I just don't know. I don't need to be taking up, learning more about technology stuff. Although I also want to do that too, to keep up with that. But I think you just need to take out time out of your day to always learn and try and grow. And I think it's important.
I think that's great advice. You've given us actually a lot of really good advice on here. I just give you a chance. Do you have any final thought, any sort of parting thing that you'd want to leave as the main impression, wrap up or summary of any of it, or something you hadn't thought of yet?
This business is probably someone's largest asset that they have. They say that if you don't own a business, it's your house, right? And you need to treat it as such. It is an asset that makes you money currently today. It hopefully will give you money when you sell it in the future. It's what you do every day. I mean, I think you should have fun with it. I think you should be constantly learning and growing and treat it as a valuable asset that one day I'm going to hopefully pass on to somebody else, and that they will continue on with that legacy. So I think that's important that they just continue on doing that.
It's great advice. Thanks so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your experience and spending this time together.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.